Hello friends, myself Dr. Dhwanit. Today we will learn about a very important part of the pediatric neurophysiotherapy, that is a primitive reflexes. It's a very important to learn about this. So we start our lecture. So first one, it's the objective for the lectures. After this lecture, the learner should be familiar with the primitive reflexes present in the baby at the birth. Identify which of the reflexes are relevant, the neurological examination of the body, baby, and be able to explain the role of the primitive reflexes, be able to explain the disappearance as well as integration of these reflexes, be able to explain the clinical significance of the reappearance or the persistence of the primitive reflexes. So background, primitive reflexes actually starts at the emerge during the late fetal period. Most of the reflexes are already present at the birth, like rooting and sucking reflex. These reflexes are of subcortical origin, arising mainly in the brainstem and to some degree in the spinal cord too. Majority of the reflexes are integrated or disappear by the age of 6/12, at least by 12/12, due to increasing inhibitory effect of the maturing cortex. Those with a protective value tend to persist throughout the life. The persistence or the reappearance of these primitive reflexes after the age of 6/12 is abnormal and usually indicative of cortical or cerebral damage. These reflexes lock the child in a holding pattern and the development becomes stuck, significantly impair the development of the posture control, achievement of the milestone, and volitional movement. So the level of the hierarchy in the motor control. Okay, so that is the order starting from the higher level, from the cortex to the midbrain, then to the spinal cord, to the lower of the control center is a spinal cord. Higher level is the cortex. So the some typical developing children continue to have persistent primitive reflexes like ATNR, which are strongly associated with the developmental challenges such as dyslexia, dyspraxia, and hyperactivity. So eliciting the primary primitive reflexes. Why do we test these primitive reflexes in the neonate? Because to evaluate the developmental status and the integrity of the neurological system in the newborn. It can give an indications of the baby's gestational age, that is in a prematurely born babies. So for that reason we do eliciting primitive reflexes. In some cases, like Moro, reflex can be used to evaluate symmetry of the body and could help to identify possible unilateral pathology of the nervous system, where one side of the nervous system is affected, like obstetric brachial plexus injury. So eliciting these reflexes in the neonate is closely related to the hunger status and alertness of the baby. Example, often hard to elicit if the baby is sleeping. So now we go to the classification of the primitive reflexes. Mostly divided into three groups. First is the functional significance, which helps the birth process of the child. Second is the protective value, that are example like flexor vertebra and cross extensors. And third classification is the early posture reactions like Morrow and startle. Okay, so we have the various primitive reflexes. They are in this sequence: glabellar tap, doll side reflex, rooting sucking reflex, palmar grab, Babinski, plantar grab, withdrawal, cross extensor, automatic walking, ATNR, Gallant, Morrow, startle, Landau, and parachute. So we go to the more important reflexes now. We have the glabellar tap reflex. In this, tap the child with your finger on the forehead just above the nose. On that response to that, he blinks or closes the eye, that is a protective value. It appears at the 32 weeks of gestational period only. So if this clinical implication of this persistent after this period, it shows persistence of the reflex associated with the Parkinson's disease. Second is the rooting reflex. It is elicited by gentle touching the top lip and the area of the facial with your finger. Baby will turn his head in the direction of the stimulation and opens his mouth. Reflex appears around 24 to 26 weeks and disappear around 3 to 4 months. The clinical implications of its persistence is persistence of the reflex may contribute towards a drooling hypersensitivity in the mouth on the lips. It's a contributing factor in the dyslexia. Next is the sucking reflex. Here the eliciting by placing the clean glove finger, bottle teeth or the dummy in the mouth and onto the tongue. The stimulus in the mouth should elicit a sucking reflex. So clinical implications of this persistence is premature baby often have a weak sucking reflex and subsequently need tube feeding. Next is asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, which is short form is ATNR. It is elicited when the head is turned to the side and kept there for 15 seconds. That is important. Position of the head is in the eliciting stimulus. The child assumes a fencing position. It means the head, arm and the leg on the side of the skull remain in the flexion when the arm and the leg on the face side will be extended. If the child does not revert to the normal symmetrical position within the seconds, this is to be considered an abnormal reflex. So here it is like this. Head is turned towards this side, upper arm is extended and the lower limb is also extended. Opposite on the skull side, the upper limb will be flexed and lower limb also flexed. This reflex is less obvious during the first month, becoming more obvious during the months of 2 to 4 months. Should have disappearance by the 6th month. If it is still persistent, then there will be difficulty in visual pursuits and tracking of the visual movements, impaired developmental bilateral hand function in the midline, writing problems, child may have dyslexia, asymmetry and deformity of the spine and limb may happen, or even hip dysplasia, there is a subluxation can happen, impaired development in the prone, crowding will be affected, hand-to-eye coordination difficulties, balance difficulties in the sitting. Next is a starter reflex. This is elicited by the loud noise or by tapping on the sternum, abduction of the arm with the flexion of the elbows, and adduction of the fingers is noted. If this reflex is persistent, then it is over exaggerated in the case of neurological injuries like CP, and it also affected in the balance in the sitting. Like this, how it elicited, right? And the Moro reflex, it is a vestibular reflex elicited by the sudden movement of the head, tested on a padded surface, example on a creep cushion or the foam mat. Child is held at a 45-degree angle to the supporting surface. Head is then lifted up slightly. Allow the head suddenly fall a couple of the centimeters before immediately supporting the head again. But don't allow the head to make a contact with the padded surface through. Okay, you have to take the head again before reaching to the surface. In response to that, there will be the sudden abduction and actions of the arms, associated with the spreading of the fingers is observed, followed by an embracing action of the adduction and flexion as the arm return to the normal position. This reflex is usually integrated by 3 to 4 months. So it is elicited like this. Sudden abduction, opening of the fingers that you can find here. Okay, on leaving the head down. Okay, and suddenly holding the head again before reaching to the padded surface. If this reflex is still persistent after the normal time, then over executed in the case of the some neurological conditions like CP, it will be fine. Hypotonia and neuromuscular defects may be considered if this reflex is decreased 0 in a young babies. Asymmetry may indicate an obstetric brachial plexus injury, difficulty transitioning, and poor balance in position like sitting. When child is uncertain about their own reactions, fear of conditional change or positional changing, and can be elicited by sound, light, temperature changes, and the movement. Next is the palmographs. Here, when the finger or other stimulus in the palm of the children's hand, stimulating the palm on the lateral aspect, in response to that, fingers will go into flexion, child will firmly grasp the hand will relax and open directly after the reaction reoccur. Integrated by 2 to 3 months of the age. Pathological if the tonic part of the reflex, that is a flexion, it still persists even after the second. It is like this, okay. If the reflexes still persist, then there's some children this reflex elicited as soon as something is brought into the contact with the hand, and even in some cases the child's own thumb. Difficulty with releasing the object from the hand interferes with the development of the grasp. Difficulty with the activities requiring weight bearing on an open hand. So these are the clinical implications of its persistent. Next is the plantar reflex. Same plantar grasp. It's same like the palmar grasp. It is elicited by pressing the sole of the foot near the base of the toes and the ball of the foot curl around the finger. Present at the birth, that should be disappeared by 3 months. Next is the flexor withdrawal reflex. It is elicited when the painful stimuli is applied, like a pin prick on the sole of the foot is pricked and stimulated with a sharp object. In response to that, the leg will be flexed in a mass pattern. This is a very protective reflex. Already present at the birth, it never disappears throughout the life. Clinical implication, if it is still persists, then over-exaggerated in some children with the CP. Any stimulation under the foot reflects in flexor withdrawal. This negatively impact on weight bearing and locomotion. Child may walk like toe clawing during the gait. Like this is the flexor withdrawal. Here the nociceptor is given from the foot. This goes with the afferent nerve fibers from nociceptors reaching to the ipsilateral extensor muscles to the motor neurons to the extensor muscles. Afferent fibers from the nociceptor go to spinal cord. Interneuron go to the one impulse go to the ontolateral extensor muscles. Same side it goes to the motor neuron to the flexor muscles. Ipsilateral flexor muscles causes the contraction. So lifting of the leg will happen on response to nociceptors. Next is the cross extensor reflex. Here the flexion of the one leg may be accompanied by extension of the opposite leg. Like this way. Strengthen the limb support on the weight bearing leg. Prevents the person from falling over. Okay. From here you can see the stimulus is given. Is going to the afferent neurons. Going to the posterior onset from the interneuron. Okay. Same side it goes to the extensor muscles causing the contraction of the quadriceps as well as from the opposite side muscles goes to the afferent neurons to the opposite leg muscles causing the extension. So once the stimulus is given, the same leg will go for the flexion, other leg will go for the extension. So if this reflex is still persist, when the overactive, as it sometimes case with the children with the CP, is negatively impacts on the gait. When the one leg is in the swing through phase of the gait, weight bearing legs extensor tone increases, making the balance very difficult. Next is positive support reflex. Here the elicited when placing the weight on the sole of the foot or the pressure is given against the sole of the foot resulting in the extension of the leg. So if it persists, then it causes pattern of the extensor plasticity is strengthened and stimulated. If it overactive, it interferes with the gait. Co-contraction in the limb results in the leg being rigidly in extension. Next is spinal gland reflex. The reflex emerges at the 20 weeks gestation and should be inhibited by 3 to 9 months. Suggests that this reflex aids in the birth process. Elicited by holding the baby in the ventral suspension. Pull your finger down the lateral side of the back muscles unilaterally. Spine and torso towards the side where the fingers are. Here, this is the way you have to move the finger from lateral side. The spine and the torso will move on the side of the stimulus. If this persists, then it is absence of this reflex can be valuable in the determining sensory loss in the case of a myelomeningocele. And portion of this reflex can affect the child's ability to sit and it can cause the sclerotic type of poor posture. Next is automatic reflex. Baby held in a supported under the axilla with the soles of the feet on a firm, flat supporting surface. Baby's automatic steps one foot in the front of the other foot. It present at the birth but disappears within 4 to 6 weeks after the birth. But it still persists after the 4 to 6 weeks. Then children with the CP can still observe the reflex when holding the child up. Do not confuse with the voluntary gait if it is present in a CP child. So this is the way, just touching the foot on the floor, you automatically doing the stepping movements. This is normal till 4 to 6 weeks. Next is the parachute reflex. It is elicited by holding the baby in a ventral suspension with the head down. Actions of the arm should occur to protect the head. This is a protective reflex, so appears at the 6th month but never disappears. Next, and the last one is a glandular reflex, elicited by holding the baby in the ventral suspension. Child will extend his head and the legs. This reflex appears at the 3 months and this should be disappeared by the 1 year of the age. If still it persists beyond the 1 year, then child with the meningocele, no action of the leg will occur. So that is the clinical implications of this persistence. So hope so everyone will be understood about these reflexes. They are very important for practicing pediatric physiotherapist. Okay, so I hope it will be clear to you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.